steadiness right down the center of the spine at the bottom. And then we release the hands and let the arms sink, maybe sink deeper into the knees, interlock the fingers, and again, lifting up, pressing, breathing in, and moving the hands, but keeping the tailbone steady. The area near the tailbone is just the anchor point, and everything else is moving from there. Breathing into the center and out to the side. And then releasing. Taking a breath, noticing the stillness in the whole body. Everything but the ribs and the lungs. You can't let that be still. Then opening the stance, maybe tilting the toes out towards the corners, getting a nice firm stance. And again, getting in touch with that still point, the base of the spine. Cross the wrists and stretch the hands apart like you're pulling a bow and arrow, and sit and look out to the side and then come back. So there's movement in the neck, in the arms, in the hands, but the base of the spine is just moving up and down. And the amazing thing about mindfulness is that it can be aware of stillness and flow at the same time. That's the part that's so fascinating. It's open to what is. Stillness and flow. And one more stretch to the side, back to the center. We might slide the feet together again, little by little, until they're parallel underneath the hips. And still. So being still and knowing it, sinking and knowing it, drawing the hands together and knowing that, spreading the hands apart above and below, touching heaven and earth. Sink, and then expand the hands away. Sink, the tailbone is still just moving up and down. Everything's happening down the center line with the hands. So there's this axis down the center that stays steady, but everything else around it is moving. Okay, one more. And relax the arms, come to stillness, and just feel the effects of that movement. Opened up rivers of sensations. And we can be really specific and just focus on the neck. Let's put our hands on our hips and just turn the chin over to one side, relaxing, maybe stretching a little bit at the end and then coming back through the center. This is called the lantern on the pole. So the spine is really still, but the head and the neck are exploring in a flow of sensations. How do we know both things are going on? There's this effortless awareness putting the hands on the small of the back brings the openness to the sternum and the ribs in front. Just continuing to turn. But no, different sensations now. And the stillness at the base of the spine. And stretching forward. There's an openness between the shoulder blades. As we turn, there's sensations in the upper spine. But the stillness at the base remains. Okay, so that's the lantern on the pole. We release the arms down, take a breath. Return to standing still. And then opening again to that wider stance. Put our hands on our knees in a particular way, with the thumbs on the outside of the kneecap and the fingers on the inside. Feel what that does with the shoulder blades. It kind of opens them up. Then we turn and lean over. Try again. Okay. We reach around and turn and look behind, and then swing over and look behind. This is called the bear. The idea was expressed in a little poem about a bear looking for berries, meandering down the hill. Maybe berries to feed her cubs, I don't know. But all the weight goes into one leg, and that knee is over the toe, and that's stability. We can feel stability. The other leg is relaxed. And then we swing over. At the same time, we can feel that strength and steadiness on one side and release on the other. The plasticity of mindfulness. It can organize around with attention on steadiness and then flow. And relaxation and firmness. Versatile awareness. And then coming back to our normal position. Let's lift our arms and take a big breath. Come down the center. And again. And once more. Now our feet are parallel. Hands on the hips again. We'll just rock back and forth. Feel the toes press into the floor, and then lift the toes and see how far back you can take the center of gravity. So we're rocking up and back, feeling the agency of the feet. They're so intelligent, they can lift us off the ground without losing balance. Sometimes. When the wind's not blowing too far. Then if we change our position, put our hands on our back again, then feet have to solve a different puzzle. But there's more air because we've opened up the front of the rib cage. We can breathe a little deeper, get a little more oxygen to the brain, let the brain help the feet figure out what to do. Then move the hands forward. A third puzzle. Relax the shoulders, relax the elbows, relax the hands. But there's weight out here. So this is called the bubbling spring. The idea, let's relax. The idea is that our connection to the earth is dynamic. And we're pumping energy up from the earth every time we engage with the earth. So when you're taking a hike, every time your feet engage with the earth, there's a flow of chi up the body. Ordinarily it goes up the back on the inhale, down the front on the exhale, but it's very versatile. It goes lots of different ways. But that rocking back and forth that we did is called the bubbling spring, as if we were standing on a spring and letting the flow of water just move right through the body with each inhale and then return to the spring with each exhale. And we can imagine that while we're standing still. Now that we've activated those nerves, we have the steadiness and stillness, but in our imagination, we can follow the flow. So Thich Nhat Hanh talks about the miracle of mindfulness. Just a couple of little exercises from what we just did was 4 or 5 pieces of the 8 pieces of brocade. You can look that up on the internet. You find all kinds of variations. Lots of people do it, and lots of people do it differently than I do. But anyway, there's 8 pieces of brocade, and each one represents a gesture that we can use to wake up. So again, sinking and opening, waking up the shoulders, waking up the hands, pouring the energy down through the crown of the head, down the spine, into the legs. We not only draw energy up from the earth, but we draw it down from the heavens. So we have this versatility as a human species to balance heaven and earth. Once more. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Sangha. Paul, are we broadcasting or we're back on? Okay. So hi to all the folks out there in internet land. If you don't know who I am, my name is Avi. I'm community coordinator here. And we're about to enact the very ancient ritual of announcements. And there's a bunch of them. Before I get into the announcements, I just wanted to let you know something that I've become aware seems to have slid into the background somewhat. When we talk about community, I think a lot of times we were talking about sort of like our physical presence here. We talk about potlucks, we talk about sits, we talk about events. I'd like to remind you that we have internet-based ways of facilitating community when we can't be here together physically. So we have a Google Forum group for Portland Insight Meditation Center, where people are free to, sort of like a, what is that website called? It's called Nextdoor. Sort of like where if you feel like you want to connect with people and there's something you want to share, or if you're looking for a new computer, or you need a recommendation about a car mechanic or anything else, you can do that. It tends to be a rather sleepy place because I think over the last few years we tend to have forgotten about it. But it could be a place where you could, as part of your seeking and investing in community here, could be one of those social media touchstones that you use, and information on how to access it is on the homepage. In addition, we also have a Google group for embracing the Dharma, or I keep doing that, for engaging the Dharma, where we are taking our practice off the cushion and we are using mindfulness in doing direct action out in the community. And that is a place where we can communicate about that as well. So just bear in mind that if you check on the website and you use our Google group, that can help give you a PIMC fix during the week when you're not here. So we have a bunch of things going on. The end of this month, on Sunday, December 30th, the Engaging the Dharma group, which is about mindful action out in the world, we are doing our first event, which is we're serving dinner at a homeless shelter called Jane's Shelter. For more information, please see the Engaging the Dharma page under the community menu on the website. I don't know how many people check the website, but we now have Engaging the Dharma now has its own page. So please take a look there if you want to know the latest about what's going on. There is also an Engaging the Dharma Google group forum that you can join, and for more information, you can contact Tricia of the raised hand would be happy to talk with you about that. Then going into next month, after the new year, Saturday, January 5th, we have our first Saturday monthly day-long retreat at PIMC in the new year. See the website for details. On Sunday, January 6th, we've got our monthly orientation session with Robert. On Sunday, January 8th, on Sunday, January 6th, the same day in the afternoon, we've got a workshop, a nonviolent communication workshop with Oren J. Sofer. We are very pleased to have him. He's a well-known author whose most recent book is Say What You Mean, A Mindful Approach to Nonviolent Communication. I understand that this workshop is geared towards beginners as well as experienced practitioners, so if you've ever had any curiosity about nonviolent communication, by all means take a look at that, and there's information on the website. Then on Tuesday, January 9th in the evening, we're going to have the January edition of our Nonviolent Communication Practice Group with Doyle and Kirsten, who is over there. She'd be happy to talk about it. This practice group is for people who have had some kind of formal training in nonviolent communication. And if you have, then you're more than welcome. Details are on the website. Then on Saturday, January 12th, we've got our first visiting teacher of the year, Frank Letter, who comes here every year, who is a Dharma brother of Robert's, and the topic of the day long is going to be patience and loving kindness, and it's going to be dedicated to Frank's and Robert's teacher, Ruth Dennison. Details are coming to the website this week. Then on Sunday, January 13th, we've got our second Sunday PIMC potluck. Also on Sunday, January 13th, we've got our next Engaging the Dharma meeting. If you've heard about this and you want to participate, please show up. You don't have to wait to attend the meeting to get involved in this. You can contact Tricia, and she'd be happy to set you up, or you can contact me. Then on Thursday, January 17th, we have one of our classes starting for winter session. That's Basics of Mindfulness with Doug Pullen. Registration is now open. And then on Saturday, January 19th, we have our next edition of Buddhist Movie Night. It's going to be Samsara, a 2011 documentary. That'll be at 6:30 p.m. Then on Tuesday, January 22nd, we're going to have another class starting for the winter session. That'll be the winter 2019 session of Skillful Speech, and registration is now open. Then finally, on Saturday, January 26th, a volunteer retreat with Robert. If you want to attend the volunteer retreat and you have not volunteered or you do not volunteer, well, then talk to Kirsten. Kirsten would be happy to set you up as a volunteer, and then you are more than welcome to attend the retreat. A few other things, speaking of volunteer needs. We have some volunteer needs. We need a person in spring to coordinate gardening and keeping the landscaping beautiful. If you would like to do that, contact me or Kirsten. We need 2 people, I believe, for hospitality team. We're a little bit short with that. Again, contact Kirsten.
More than 2.
We need more than 2. We need as many as we need as many as we can possibly get. We also need, I think, a couple of people for housekeeping. Kirsten?
We could use 1 or 2 more.
Okay, 1 or 2 more people to keep this place feeling clean and wonderful to be in. And then we need a general fix-it person, somebody who just knows, who's good with their hands and knows how to fix lots of different things. Please contact Kirsten or me. We have Dharma consults available on request. Jim, are you available? Sure. So if you have an issue that is coming up in your seated practice and you want to talk to an established practitioner, Jim would be happy to meet with you for about 20 minutes today after the Dharma talk. If you have never had a practice and you want to get started on one, really is simple to get started. Jim would be able to help you with that. If you cannot meet with Jim today, please contact me and I can set you up to meet with one of our teachers, either in person or on the phone or via a video conference. Very easy to do. If you wish to engage with this community at a deeper level and want to volunteer, please talk to Kirsten. We have a number of other sits during the week that are smaller and more intimate if you would like to try those. We also have spiritual friends groups that engage in the Dharma on their own schedule. If you want to find out more about that, details are on the website. And we have our Transitions Project, where we donate small household items that we can't use anymore to the homeless, and helps them get back on track with their lives. And then finally, if you have any questions about anything having to do with this place, particularly you folks out on the internet, if you want to engage more in this community, please contact me, and I would be happy to answer your questions and see how I can help you.
Also,
Oh.
Anyway, fresh cut today, cedar off my tree. If anybody would like to take some home, they make little swags and you can put them in the row or put them in water and they smell great. Now,
Fresh cut cedar smells great. It does.
So I'll have them out front and anyone's welcome to take some.
Excellent. So, I think that's it. And Robert is ready to get going. So, thank you very much all for being here. And I want to wish you all a happy solstice, which is coming up next weekend. The days are going to start getting longer. Yay! Blessings to you all. Have a wonderful rest of your Sunday.
That's cheerful. It occurs to me just now, this is one of a few pictures that will be in my book. It's due at the publisher January the 31st, and it's really quite an undertaking and really a beautiful thing. And I want to take this moment to thank Laura Musikanski, and you're probably out there, Laura, without whom this book would simply never have gotten off the ground, because she listened and watched my talks and came to retreats and just swam around in the material so much, and then created the chapters, and then has kind of held my nose to the grindstone for, let's make a date and let's work together on it, on this, and then this is your homework. And she found the publisher, and so on and so on. So I want to thank you, Laura. It's an amazing thing to have a friend like that, a colleague, with the kind of competencies to do something in the face of someone who's self-doubting and thinking, no, it's already been written, and to deal with all that personal crap, as well as really the mechanics of making a book happen. So. Quite wonderful. She lives in Seattle, otherwise you would see her here a lot. So, I have in mind sharing an intuition with you, and you know how hard it is to do that. It's difficult. But I'm going to try. Let me get my drum. Oh, that'd be good. Oh, there's that cup. Mindful in every moment, and I lost it on the way in. Yes, it came back to me. So this little poem, many of you have heard it. Came to me a couple of years ago. It's one of the most bracing Dharma poems I know. It's one of those that kind of goes, whack, wake up. It's by Jennifer Wellwood. My friends, let's grow up. Let's stop pretending we don't know the deal here. Or if we truly haven't noticed, let's wake up and notice. Look, everything that can be lost will be lost. Everything that can be lost will be lost. It's simple. How could we have missed it for so long? Let us grieve our losses fully like ripe human beings, but please, let's not be so shocked by them. Let's not act so betrayed as though life had broken her secret promise to us. Impermanence is life's only promise to us, and she keeps it with ruthless impeccability. To a child, she seems cruel, but she is only wild. And her compassion is exquisitely precise. Brilliantly penetrating, luminous with truth, she strips away the unreal to show us the real. This is the true ride. Let's give ourselves to it. Let's stop making deals for a safe passage. There isn't one anyway, and the cost is too high. We are not children anymore. The true human adult gives everything for that which cannot be lost. Let us dance the wild dance of no hope. It's like, wow. So, if you were to take a liquid like this and take your finger up and drop a drop in, surface tension grabs the drop, fires it back up, and then it makes one of these. And actually with high-speed photography, it's actually not one, it's more like 10. It goes every drop that hits every lake, every pond, they all do this. And there's a moment, and this is particularly poignant for me because on that first meditation retreat I did in India in January 1971, when the mind for the first time ever got really calm, there was a little tiny fountain. I mean, rinky-dink little fountain, just less than a pencil of water, and it came up and it would do this and it was falling on itself, and I sat there totally engrossed for a long time. That perception, it was also amazing to see, but also that perception could be that simple, that direct. So I use this as a metaphor for the separate self. A really short time ago, a sperm and an egg came together in optimal circumstances, and something miraculous happened. Life, you, me. Every single one of us came into being with the dance of DNA, right? And then we made it through the first trimester, and everything worked sufficiently that we were born. And we took a deep breath, a gasping breath. The umbilical cord was either cut or clamped, and carbon dioxide built up in the body, and we breathed in, and we've been breathing in ever since then. And we've gone through extensive somebody training to be a somebody. And all of our somebodies are pretty neurotic. Right? That just by the structure of them. And we're designed to survive, for this one and the few around us to survive, and we're not spontaneously nice to many others. And so we go through our lives. The key part is coming up here, or another key part. And then they get older. The bodies age. And we are prone to so many diseases and accidents. We're so vulnerable. We're just one big vulnerability. And some of us do the madness of having children, and then the vulnerability goes, because then there's other people that we hold very dear, and then they're traveling around the world in cars, and then at some point it gets very sick. And it stops working very well. And then it, quote, dies, and we exhale, and then we disappear. Is that not weird? I mean, there's nothing, And then there's something of extraordinary complexity and beauty and challenge. And then it disappears. And along the way, there are so many things to worry about. Am I going to be okay? Will I get into the college of my choice? Will I have enough money in retirement? Is this new bump that I feel something really bad? Et cetera, et cetera. Just think about the things you worry about. There's a lot, aren't there? For most of us. Oh, and then there's things that go wrong, like mood disorders and depression and earthquakes, and it's all very unstable. So with this little droplet, if this little drop were to start singing, I, me, mine, I am the most important, I'm going to gather with some others and I'm going to gather more power, and from out here we would say that little drop is delusional because it has forgotten what it is, right? It's forgotten that it really is an epiphenomenon. It has a very short lifetime. So, see if I can weave all these threads together that I wanted to. This picture was not planned on that first moon mission. They hadn't thought to take this picture, but when they saw it, they took it. And it's kind of revolutionary, isn't it? That's our little spaceship. It's even North America. Look at that. Huh. I had never noticed. That's home. That's mom. We are that. That's a self-portrait. And there's not much life on this dead rock in front of us. And look at the craters from the meteor impacts. So then we make another really big jump. That's the Earth from 4 billion miles away. And Carl Sagan was the person who requested that they turn the Voyager around and take this one last picture before they shut down the cameras. And I had it queued. Oh, here it is. So, the excerpt below from Carl Sagan's book, Pale Blue Dot, was inspired by an image taken at Sagan's suggestion by Voyager 1 on February 14th, 1990. As the spacecraft, I have difficulty reading this without tears. It just somehow, it touches me at such a deep level. The spacecraft left our planetary neighborhood for the fringes of the solar system. Engineers turned it around for one last look at its home planet. Voyager 1 was about 4 billion miles away and approximately 32 degrees above the ecliptic plane. The ecliptic is where the planets rotate, and it was up here. When it captured this portrait of our world, caught in the center of scattered light rays, a result of taking the picture so close to the sun, the Earth appears as a tiny point of light, a crescent only 0.12 pixels in size. This is Sagan. Look again at that dot. That's here. That's home. That's us. On it, everyone you have ever heard of, every human being who ever was, lived out their lives. The aggregate of our joy and suffering, thousands of confident religions, ideologies, and economic doctrines, every hunter and forager, every hero and coward, every creator and destroyer of civilization, every king and peasant, every young couple in love, every mother and father, hopeful child, inventor and explorer, every teacher of morals, every corrupt politician, every, quote, superstar, every, quote, supreme leader, every saint and sinner in the history of our species lived there, on a mote of dust, suspended in a sunbeam. The earth is a very small stage in a vast cosmic arena. Think of the rivers of blood spilled by all those generals and emperors so that in glory and triumph they could become a momentary master of a fraction of a dot. Think of the endless cruelties visited on inhabitants of one corner of this pixel on the scarcely distinguishable inhabitants of some other corner. How frequent their misunderstandings, how eager they are to kill one another, and how fervent their hatreds. Our posturings, our imagined self-importance, the delusion that we have some privileged position in the universe, are challenged by this point of pale blue light. Our planet is a lonely speck in the great enveloping cosmic dark. In our obscurity in all this vastness, there is no hint that help will come from elsewhere to save us from ourselves. The earth is the only world known so far to harbor life. There is nowhere else, at least in the near future, to which our species might migrate. Visit, perhaps, settle, not yet. Like it or not, for the moment, the earth is where we make our stand. It's been said that astronomy is a humbling and character-building experience. There's perhaps no better demonstration of the folly of human conceits than this distant image of our tiny world. To me, it underscores our responsibility to deal more kindly with one another and to preserve and cherish this pale blue dot, the only home we've ever known. Once upon a time, in a small village, town, kingdom in North India, there was born a boy, Siddhartha Gautama. If the story interests you, you can find at least 2 renditions of it that I've done on YouTube, and a couple of them in audio, taking about an hour and a half, actually, using the drum and filling in lots of details. But there's a couple of pieces of it I want to sketch out here today. It's a map. Mythology is not a lie. Some people say it's a lie. Mythology is a map of the inner life, and the meanings are all symbolic. And so the story of the Buddha or the story of Jesus or the story of Moses or whatever, they're all the story of us. And they're stories that have had such power, they have crystallized civilizations around them. And we tend to mistake them, to get them wrong. There's, for instance, there's this mythology of the birth of the Christ, which is about love coming into the world and about light and about sharing and caring. And we characteristically have mistaken it as it's about gifts and about stuff and about commercialism, and that happens all the time. The same thing is happening with Buddhism. Really, it's about the stuff, it's about the outfits, it's about decor, Buddhist decor. But back to the story. Ooh, a little tremor. Huh. It's the story of how do we seek happiness? How do we seek happiness in a world in which impermanence is on the level that if we take the lid off it, if we look toward it directly, it's stunning. So the first act is Siddhartha the householder being trained to become a king and a warrior, and that's the lifetime in which he explored happiness through the senses. And so he had a personal jet, and he had the finest sound system, and he had sex, drugs, and rock and roll as much as he wanted. And he married the girl next door, the beautiful princess in the next kingdom, and then they got pregnant. And they had a baby. And it's like the good life was unfolding for him. And then he left that to go explore the inner life, and then he explored one way, the mind of concentration, and that didn't free him. And then he decided, well, it's my desires that are keeping me stuck. Let me get rid of my desires. I won't feed any of them. And so he did this whole ascetic thing for years and almost died. And then he realized what might work. And then it did work. And then he had an intuitive understanding, which then led him to teach for 40-some years. And we're here because of that intuition. We're here because of that quest. But also it's a fulfilled quest, that he figured out how to do it and then taught tens of thousands of people. And there's an unbroken line of that that's come down through time. So, his life was going along really well. And there's the mythological component. The Hindu deities wanted his teachings, and they had celebrated his birth, but he wasn't getting to the teachings because things were going so well. He was, he always got the next upgrade of this or that. And so they sent these heavenly messengers, and they were in the form of a sick person, a very old person, and then a corpse. And then a wandering mendicant who had a smile on his face, a mendicant, a spiritual seeker who abandoned the world, the worldly life. And it's a very colorful story, right? He's going along in his chariot with his charioteer Channa, and the Hindu deities send down a very sick person. And he sees this sick person. He's never seen this in his life, right? His denial has been sufficient that he didn't see it. And so, his father had an edict out that this young man is not to have any hardship in his life. Of course, it's mythology, but they stop, and he gets off, and he looks at this sick person and says, what the hell is this? And Channa says, well, this is sickness. Could this happen to me, to you, to me, to my wife, to my child? Why, yes, this actually does happen to everybody. I'm in contact with and know a fair number of people who are really sick right now. You probably are too. Right? Because sickness is normal. It's not a mistake. It's when you do one of these little DNA dances and get born, we are subject to all kinds of sickness, and in the end, terminal illness. So then anyway, he encountered this sick person and then a very old person. And my encounter with that was when my mother went into a nursing home, and when she was about my age, actually. And then she was there for 6 years. And I visited her often, 4 times a year. She lived in Vancouver, BC. And I would spend a lot of time there and around these really old and decrepit people. It's so shocking. It's hard. And we as a culture do our damnedest to avoid it. We don't like to think about it. We like to think of this, the happy young people with a Coca-Cola in their hands. Hi. And then the corpse. I've had the privilege of performing 10, 15 end-of-life services for people. And there's one in particular that I remember. One of my students' father died. And the body was in one room, and this memorial service was happening in another one, and then there was food in the third one. Almost no one went in to see the body. Well, that's morbid, right? I don't want to do that. Well, what happens if we see the body is we realize, good grief, this is actually real. It's cold, and it's hard, and it's not, the person isn't here, and you can pinch it as hard as you want, and there's no reaction. And in the Buddhist world, there's a lot of emphasis on, if you get a chance to sit with a human corpse, or an animal corpse for that matter, don't miss it. Because it reminds us of this, right? And the little droplet, that we're a little flash in the pan. And then the wandering monk showed up. So there's a great book. We have 3 copies of it in the library. I highly recommend it. It's called The Lady of the Lotus. It's a fictional tale of the Buddha's wife and how she saw this whole thing come about. And in the book, as I remember, years ago I read it, they're out walking, and he's walking on the foundation walls of a previous civilization. And he said, this is going to happen to our castle too. And he became distressed and disturbed and depressed because the consolation prizes of his great success and his wealth and so on stopped working because the reality of impermanence, of suffering, broke through. Now his experience of that would be, as it is for most of us, oh no, this is a bummer, right? I want to have a normal life where I'm living to consume. But truth sometimes breaks through, and compassion and love. And so he reached this incredibly difficult decision, which was, I have to leave. They call it the great going forth. And now, we don't have to leave our families to go forth. What it means is that something happens and we realize, the things I'm chasing after aren't going to do it. Because nothing does. Another achievement, another child, another degree, another vacation. They come and they go, and they come and they go. So in his case, he left. In the middle of the night, he left. And he went to go say goodbye to his wife and child, and he realized he couldn't. Because if he'd gone in to talk to them, he couldn't ever have left. I'm editing out all kinds of pieces here. One little useful piece is to remember that at that time, the mother-son bond was the greater strength than the husband-wife bond. And so people didn't say, look at that, he left his wife. They said, look at that, he left his mother. So things can be different. But it was revolutionary. He left, he rode off into the night on his great war horse, Kantaka, white war horse, stopped at great distance, took his sword, cut off his hair, gave it to Channa and said, take this back to my father and tell him, don't follow me. And then he went off into the woods. And he met those teachers in the woods who were capable of very high concentration states. And he mastered them immediately, very quick, within days. And he would approach the teacher and say, well, what's next? And they'd say, you know everything there is to know. You are now in the God realms. But then he said, but wait, I always come down. It's like what Timothy Leary said, the difficulty, that with LSD is you get there, but then you always come down. No, it was Ram Dass who said that you always. So how to experience great consciousness without coming down? So after 3 of those experiences, he decided, it's not working to get tremendously concentrated, just that. Maybe if this body keeps wanting things. It wants pleasure, it wants food, it wants sexuality, it wants. I'm gonna try this other path, which says no more indulgence. So he slept outside. He became a 1 grain of rice a day man in the story, which is low fat, low protein, low carb, low, and he became skinny. There's tremendous sculptures you can look up online. The starving Buddha, he could reach in and touch his spine. He was so thin, and he almost died. He went into the river to bathe one day and couldn't get out. Almost couldn't get out. So he managed to get out, and then along comes this wonderful mythological creature named Sujata, a woman who has taken the milk. This is colorful. The milk from 100 cows, fed it to 5 cows, fed it to 3 cows, fed it to 1 cow, and has this 1 bowl of milk rice. Great Indian delight. And she offers it to the Buddha instead of the gods, and nurses him back to health. At this point, his friends who'd been practicing with him leave him because he's obviously fallen back into the world. And I think it's a marvelous juxtaposition here. The incredible masculine, no, I will not indulge myself. And along comes the feminine and says, well, you just might take care of your body. It's kind of important. And then, how are we doing for time? Oh, good. I can slow down. So the questions are, what about sickness, old age, decay, and death? What about the fact that everything is impermanent, like this Jennifer Berzon poem? Is there any relief? One relief, a common one, is religion. And in religion, there's a book, and there's stories, and one then believes very fervently on the story. I believe on this, and one then has an idea, I am saved. And when I die, I'm going to go from here up to be with the chosen ideal, and I'll be there for the longest, and I'll be there for eternity. If I'm bad, I'll go down and I'll be there for eternity. And there's variations of this all over the planet. I mean, it's really normative for human beings to have magical stories of the continuing existence of this separate self. And something I don't know whether I heard this or it became apparent to me, the intensity with which someone is trying to convert you to their belief system represents the intensity of the doubt that they're actually suffering, that they're unconscious of. If I can just convert you, then maybe it's true. That belief system existed, of course. That was the standard belief system in the time of the Buddha, the soul theory, that I exist, I am a separate being, I came in somehow, and then ultimately I'm going to continue to exist, and then maybe there are those traditions that say, and your family of origin will go with you, which some of us look upon with some terror. It's like, right? Your parents and siblings of this lifetime. So, it occurred to the Buddha, he had a memory, that when he was a child and his father, who was the king, was digging the first furrow in the fields, and the worms were getting kicked out and the birds were coming and eating him, and he was kind of turned off by that. He went and sat by himself. And in that sitting by himself, something happened where he entered a sort of reverie, a sort of aware presence place that was very awake and relaxed. And he thought, boy, I've tried all these other things. Maybe I'll try that. And he went and sat underneath the Bodhi tree, which is the tree of awakening. It's a big fig tree. And in the story, and this is the story of us, right? This is not some guy back then, but it's us. In the story, he sits down and he starts to practice in this way, and Mara shows up. And Mara is the Buddhist Satan figure. And Mara says, hey, Buddha or Siddhartha, what are you up to? He says, well, I'm going to wake up tonight. I'm going to wake up or die. And Mara says, well, not so fast. How about this? And suddenly the three most beautiful women ever to be on the planet exist. Now this is the straight, hetero Siddhartha. There could be three handsome men, or the variations that are now coming to, that'd be interesting. It would be a non-binary Siddhartha who's, whatever the case, it was the most desirable object. It's like, stay here, indulge. And I love this. This may be my favorite part of the story. In the straight Siddhartha story, he says to these three gorgeous women, my dears, I'd love to go with you. I know it would be extraordinary. And tomorrow it would be over, and I'd be right back here. Poof, they disappear. Interesting relationship to desire, isn't it? Right? Maybe desire, this separate self that with its desires, maybe those desires aren't what set us free. Maybe there's something bigger. And then the next challenge was the storms of hatred, jealousy, loneliness, the emotional storms. And the images that they came and they threw arrows and spears, and as they entered his sphere, they turned to perfumes and flowers. He had so much love for everything that arose in his consciousness, nothing touched him. Right? Oh, it's this, poof. And then the final one, and if I had set it up well, I didn't think to do it ahead of time, someone would now call my phone and would go, ring, ring, and I'd be sitting here and I'd look at it and say, excuse me. And you'd think, what the hell? He's answering his phone in the middle of a talk. But then I would say, Mara here. Oh, Suddhodana, it's your father, Siddhartha. Yeah. Oh, yeah, you need him. There's raping and pillaging. You need a successor, and he's meditating, right? Yeah, okay, I'll tell him. And so Siddhartha says, he's being told, check your email. You have responsibilities. You've got to get to work. You do not have an hour every morning to meditate. You have important things to do. Siddhartha says, I've done what it takes. I take the earth as my witness. And he reached down and touched the ground, and something happened. He became grounded, and something happened, which is why we're here today. And that something was, I think, that he realized this, not as a picture from space, but he realized that which knows, that which is awake, is this. And that it's always right here. And that the whole purpose of this Satipatthana method of meditation, to study the body, study the breath, study the liking and disliking, study the personality and the stories that we tell, and watch them all coming and going. And as we become more and more astute at that, and less graspy at that, we awaken to the fact that we already are this, always. We already are this, and we have a thin layer, we have dust in our eyes, or there's a way we're attached. We contract to something, and then we have to defend what we're contracted about. And I watch in my own meditation how the direction of there's nothing to do. And then the wandering mind comes in, and it always comes in with a tightening. I have to tighten up to be somebody. So, on the one hand, the non-dual teachers say, you're already awake, believe nothing to the contrary. That's the teaching. And from the Theravadan end, it says, well, you've got quite a self, why not study it until you discover that it's not solid? Until what it actually is a changing process. And along the way, you'll come to terms with emotional issues and learn how to deal with interpersonal issues much more effectively. But the intention is, all right, it's this. I love this picture. That satellite is still, that's not a satellite, that probe is still going and still sending back information 20 years later, more than 20 years later. So let's do a very brief little meditation. Please pay attention to your body. This that you think of as your body. Notice how alive it is, how it is sensations. And now, mostly in the instructions that I offer, I'd say something like, bring awareness into the breathing. Focus in. In this instance, I'm going to invite you to do something really different. Don't do anything at all. It's the most challenging thing for us human beings. Do nothing. And notice that there's a way that consciousness exists. Awakeness exists. There's nothing to figure out. There's nowhere to get to. There's nothing to improve. When the mind wanders and there's a contraction, notice that it self-liberates. It ends all by itself. It's like daffodils or seasons. There's nothing to do. Ruth Denison used to say in parting, "Darling, enjoy the beauty of your being." I think she meant this. When your personality manifests as an emotion or a thought, don't fight it. Don't try to change it. Just, there's that. Doesn't mean you can't pay attention to your breath if you'd like to. It's a miraculous thing. We could call this the practice of complete love, or of equanimity, of no preference. And as we become more comfortable resting in love, in utter awakeness and receptivity, our life towards others, our actions toward those that we think of as others, we see as others, transforms as well. It's really just us. This planet, this little dust speck, lives. She peoples herself. She Douglas Firs herself. She Republicans and Democrats herself. She rich and poors herself. So remembering, we can practice sometimes doing nothing. And from this doing nothing, sometimes we will know exactly what to do in the relative world to be of service without being of harm. And please now notice the contraction it takes, the effort it takes to form an intention of letting the eyes open. And then seeing happens. And to the degree that it's comfortable, I invite you to turn, look around the room, make what we call eye contact, but it's really consciousness contact. And notice your own personality may fire up, or you might have opinions about that person, quote, over there. But you can always just remember, all right, this is seeing. Seeing this. The universe has manifested. Oh, there's a beautiful Sufi practice. It's the 101 beautiful names of God. Back there on the wall, there's that leather. It's a goatskin, which I actually bought at Rumi's tomb in Konya in Turkey. And it says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, which is the start of almost all Islamic prayer. And that says, we begin in the name of Allah, whose name is compassion and mercy. Not a bad start. And then there's 99 more beautiful names of God, and one of them is Ya Shakur. So when you meet someone, you might go, Ya Shakur. And the translation is, I love this, how exquisitely God is manifesting in this moment to me as you. Now, of course, this isn't God, some old man sitting somewhere. This is the utter mystery of existence. So, how extraordinary it is that the universe is presenting itself to me as you. That's a nice way to meet, isn't it? Imagine you got born and went through all that difficulty becoming you just to meet me, which is right now. And that's always true. So I hope this intuition has touched your intuition, and that it makes it much easier to quote, meditate. That when you sit down, it's not about achieving anything. It's about remembering what already exists. And some of it's really painful and some of it's really pleasant. Always was, always will be. Well, let us make a big circle. Thank you for listening so intently and allowing me to share this with you. I don't hear the kids yet, oddly enough. Oh, let's turn it off too. Push the button twice, power twice. Push again. Okay. Eric. Could we have a close-up of Eric's sweater, please? Would you turn and face the camera? Come on. Yeah, man. That's... Yes. That was good. Very impressive. I love the sparkles myself. May I have your hand, sir? May I have yours? How wonderful that we have hands. So please give the hand of the person on your right a little squeeze. Think a kind thought about them. Here we are passing through a lifetime. I often think, may you remember what you really are. May you wake up now. And to the hand on your left, giving that a squeeze. And going around our circles, hand to hand, heart to heart. And including everyone who's ever been in this room, and it's 90 years of greeting people, 80. To all of our friends, our loved ones, those people we think of as the enemy, may we remember that we are tiny organisms on a pale blue dot, and that it really makes sense to be kind to each other. The other option is madness. And so, we come to the sacred moment of singing. Who's singing? All right. For you, Nisi.
May all beings be happy. May all beings be happy.
May all beings be happy. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you. Beautiful. Well, these human minds are capable of so much, including the sacred wish with the blowing out of the candle. What's your wish? What's your wish? All right, ready? Everybody take a big deep breath in. Everybody in the room gets to breathe in. 1, 2, 3, blow. Hey, we did it again. Thank you, dear friends, for coming. Sorry about the broadcast difficulties. Thanks for fixing it up. Thank you all. Please come have a cup of tea and see you soon.